I know, my bed. I don't have to shout that loud and you can hear me better. How's that? One at a time, right? When you roll up here, folks, unless you'd rather stay.
In case we get a call, we don't want to disturb the ceremony, so
Well, if it's not for one of us, you're all right. Good morning, comrades, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Would you kindly join me as a salute to our national colors, please? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I had asked for a nice sunny day in the 70s, but somebody didn't get the word. I'm sorry to hear that. Not snowing anyway. In past years, I've always started our day with the remembrance of December 7th, 1941. Today, I'd like to start with December 5th, 1941. Navy Lieutenant William Outerbridge, he was a 35-year-old Navy officer, lieutenant. He was given his first command of a ship. He was given command of the USS Ward, a World War I vintage, flush deck, four-stack destroyer that was on duty at Pearl Harbor. On December 6th, he went out on a routine patrol, doing an arc route 2 miles off the coast of Oahu, the entrance to Pearl Harbor. This being his first sea command, he was a little bit upset and urged, not quite knowing what his crew would do, not having served with them before. They were young men, 18, 19, 20, a few regular Navy personnel, a little bit older. He was just after the bridge at 6:37 on December 7th, 6:37 a.m. They had a call to report to the bridge. He went to the bridge, picked up his binoculars, and sighted a periscope in a conning tower of a small submarine. It seemed to be trying to enter Pearl Harbor following another ship with a barge. His summation was it was not one of ours. He immediately called general quarters and pushed the ship up to flank speed. At about 100 yards from what he had seen, he ordered open fire. The forward 4-inch weapon fired, was too high, went over the target. As the ship began to pass the target, the number 3 gun, another 4-inch weapon, fired, and its shell hit the target just where the conning tower met the hull of this submarine. Punctured a hole in it. The submarine rolled, rocked, slowed down, and sank. They completed this run, came back over the target area, dropped some depth charges, and they noticed an oil slick on the water. No contact with a sub or anything else was made at that time. He called Com Pacific, reported, and I'll read you the message that he sent. This is from the ward. We have attacked, fired upon, and dropped charges on the submarine operating in defense area of the sea. At 6:54 a.m. he sent his message. Compact handled the message as a false sighting and would look into it. At 7 a.m. on that same morning, December 7th, two Army privates operating a new radar set that they hadn't had time to even function with, put the set on and noticed some blips indicating aircraft headed toward the island of Oahu. They called base and were told it could be a malfunction. Turn off the set and return to base. At about the same time, Cornelia Ford, a young lady, was flying over Honolulu teaching a young student to fly a small two-seat Piper Cub airplane. She saw an airplane coming at her and climbed to get out of its way, and in so doing she saw markings on the Japanese aircraft's wing. When landing, she saw smoke over the harbor and bomb splashes in the water. At about 6:45 a.m., 6 Japanese aircraft carriers had launched 181 dive bombers, torpedo bombers, high-level bombers, and fighter planes that began their attack on Pearl Harbor at 5 minutes to 8, 7:55 a.m. D-Day, the day of infamy, had begun. The second attack started later, and 168 more aircraft attacked our installations on Oahu. Fingers don't always work the way you want. At this site, over the years, I have known a number of men who've been and have been at this site as we remember those that served and survived that infamous day of December 7th. Among those men that we have known and I have known, Joe Panic, an Army Air Corps soldier, was wounded by Japanese machine gun fire at Hickam Air Force Base. George Bannon, U.S. Navy, served on a Whitney, USS Whitney. Later on, he became a member of the Coast Guard and retired as a Coast Guard commander. Charlie Falloscia, Navy again, he served on the Pennsylvania, USS Pennsylvania. She was a battleship. He was the top lookout up in the highest point on the ship, and the ship itself was in dry dock for repairs. Charlie couldn't do anything to help his shipmates or do any firing, but from his position he was able to call down to those that had machine guns that were firing at the enemy planes, giving his shipmates the numbers and directions for which the planes were coming and they should be fired. Walter Morley was another Army veteran, served in Oahu. Gilbert Goodwin, he was a Navy man, served on the USS Curtis, a seaplane tender. Curtis was hit by a bomb and a burning Japanese airplane. 22 of Gilbert's shipmates had been killed. Philip Hall was a lieutenant, U.S. Army Signal Corps, and he was out on the island doing field maneuvers. Hall's wife worked at Fort Schaefer, and she got into her car and was driving toward the base and her office with Japanese planes flying overhead. Dick Neeson, a Navy officer, he was on the Curtis. He was in charge of damage control under the burning repair deck after the Japanese plane crash. Leroy Weber, Navy, served on the USS Phoenix, a cruiser, and during the war years, Leroy served on 3 different warships in the Pacific Theater of Operations. Edmund Girard was a Navy man. He was a submariner, and he was on temporary duty at Compact Pacific. By coincidence, Dick Neeson and Gilbert Goodwin served on the same ship and met here at this site during one of our observances in Yarmouth on December 7th. On December 7th of 1941, there were 90 United States ships berthed at Pearl Harbor. Japanese aircraft sunk and damaged 21 ships of our Pacific Fleet. They destroyed 188 and damaged 159 Army and Navy aircraft and hit other facilities. At 9:50 a.m., the last Japanese airplane headed back to its carrier, 200 miles north of Oahu. Japanese had lost 29 planes and too many submarines. While the battle was going on, 2 Army Air Force pilots managed to get to their aircraft that were at a temporary base where they had been doing live firing. They got their aircraft into the air. They were the old P-40s. And at that time, to have a plane setting out with live ammunition on board was very unusual. I don't even know if it had been forbidden at the time, but fortunately the airplanes had ammunition on board. They took off and they accounted for 3 Japanese aircraft. The main target of the attack on that particular day was Battleship Row, where the Arizona, California, and the West Virginia were sunk. The Nevada was grounded and the Oklahoma capsized. 3 other battleships had been damaged. More than 2,300 service persons were dead and over 1,200 were wounded. And another 60 civilians had also been wounded during the bombing attacks. As in other wars, you bury your dead, treat your wounded, and fight to win the war. Carmela Ford returned to the United States and became a WASP, a Women's Air Force Service pilot. She flew military aircraft from facilities where they were manufactured to air bases, towed targets for gunners to shoot at, and she herself was killed in a crash in 1943. Commander Outbridge, by then he was a commander, not a lieutenant, had a new destroyer, the O'Brien. He received a radio message during one of the battles for the Philippines to proceed and sink an abandoned burning hulk that had been bombed and set ablaze by Japanese bombers. On December 7th, 1944, 3 years to the day after it had been the first U.S. ship to fire a shot at the enemy, the Ward was sunk by gunfire from the O'Brien, ordered by Commander Outbridge. The war that had begun in December of 1941 came to an end in September of 1945. The Day of Infamy had been avenged, and over 17 million Americans were in service, had changed the world for generations to come. More than 60 years after that fateful day at Pearl Harbor, in 2002, a submersible craft detected and photographed a midget submarine in 1,200 feet of water 3 miles south of the entrance to Pearl Harbor. Its hatch was closed, 2 torpedoes were still retained, and a conning tower had a shell hole through it. One of the Ward's original crew members went down to view the midget submarine of World War II. By coincidence, who fired the first shot on that fateful morning so many years before. Commander, Tommy, take the lead. Today, we gather here to remember the past. We live in an ever-changing world. We know not who our enemies is, what he looks like, or where he comes from. We must always be vigilant, alert, and prepared. We always should remember, and I'm sure all of us do, that he who forgets the past is condemned to repeat it. As the wreath bearers prepare to cast the wreath, I would ask that all of you join me at the proper time where we will render our salute. At this time, our wreath bearers, Patrick, who served in the Marines, Lady Marines in World War II, and our post commander will cast the wreath into the sea to remember all of those that have gone down to the sea in ships. Caps will be blown. Punk. This completes our program, comrades, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope to see all of you here again a year from today. Thank you.